Thanks for joining us today on Indivisible America. I'm your host, John Stubbins. And, if you look on the news today, you'll see that Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, the whole team for President Trump had a big news conference today. This is obviously breaking news. And needless to say, the press conference was stunning. The breadth of the fraud, of the voter fraud with these not only Dominion systems, but many other forms of voter fraud within certain counties in these Democrat-run districts. So we know that the fraud is widespread over many states and different counties within those states. And so I cannot believe how deep this fraud goes, but yet I can. I guess it's stunning to actually hear it, to know it, and to see it. And because of that, I've got to tell you that this investigation isn't going anywhere. There is going to be no concession speech by President Trump because this fraud is real and he won the White House. He was cheated completely out of this election by the Democrats and a scheme that's going to blow your mind. I will also tell you that I personally am working with several different stories right now that I'm not going to get into today that are going to blow this whole thing wide open and explain to you the connections to the money, who's on the take. This is just so deep, people, that I cannot express to you how the ramifications might be probably the biggest story in America's history. And so I'm gonna break this to you, this voter fraud, and that's all we're gonna talk about today regarding that. I also want to get into a little bit about the vaccines under warp speed by President Trump, his program, and the success that it's having, but also get into a little bit of the talk there about fraud, which we know is in existence. And, I want to go back to how we got here. And we discussed this last week. We got here by an attempted coup of the president of the United States, even before he was elected. So candidate Donald Trump, and then President Donald Trump in the years between 2015, 2017. So Carter Page, General Michael Flynn, George Papadopoulos, this FISA abuse, the Russia hoax, the Ukraine call, all the money that the Democrats spent and wasted of taxpayer money, the money that went to Iran, et cetera, the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden connections there in Ukraine and China, those shady deals as well. It all connects to one picture. And as we roll this out, not all today, like I said, we're dealing with a whistleblower that has information that is going to blow this whole thing wide open. And the fact that it hasn't been, and a lot of people know about it, is what's really scary. So in getting back to how we got here, all these people are affected. And it looks like, over here, that's a big enough problem all on its own. The dossier, the FISA abuse, the Russia hoax, all of that is a huge problem. It's treasonous, all that happened just there. Okay. But when you line up these other things that are connected to that, that's where it gets mind blowing. And you've got to connect all the dots. But, the Democrats went through the impeachment hoax, the Ukraine phone call. Like I said, since then, we've had the riots, we've had the pandemic, the rigged election now, which it gets into, I guess, the heart of the matter of just how desperate these people are. If you sense the desperation, America, take a big whiff. Take a big whiff of what you're smelling, because the people that have a brain, that use common sense out there, I salute you, because here's the deal. You've smelled it. You've continued to smell it. And it's just one thing after another that keeps piling on to this huge pile of crap that we've all been fed and the lies that we've been given. So make no mistake about it. the voter fraud that's happening in this election, and when I say this election, I mean because it is still a current election. Nothing's been declared, nothing's been certified. The media can say whatever they want about Biden being the president-elect, but all that's going to get struck down as this is all unfolded and revealed to the American people, and obviously the court system, who has to chime in on some of this as well. But this corruption, it explains why, they're in a rush to get that wall down. It also explains why they want to get as many illegal immigrants flooded into the country, why they want to screw up the economic system, the Marxism, how the BLM and Antifa all came in the paramilitary wing, let's call it, of the Democratic Party. How all that comes into play, into the fold, is amazing. And then you get into the racial theories that they're trying to impose in the schools. Yes, it goes all the way down to our schools. And it's stunning because, you've not only got dead people voting out there, you've got people voting 3 and 4 times in this uncovered scheme of fraud that these Democrats are trying to pull. And I guess that they just assumed that Republicans would lie down and not do anything about it, that they would decide that they're going to try to hide it, maybe do a little here and only a little there. They're uncovering that it's in certain places, in certain counties, specifically because that's where these people have their control. And because that's where they have their control, that's where they can do the most damage in this situation. So defunding police, all of that, it all ties into this, because if they do this Marxist movement that they call, which is really their revolution, it's not really even a movement. What it is, and we've been lied to about that, because the numbers that you're seeing on television, that CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times is telling you about, or the Washington Post, they're giving you this sense that there's these huge armies in these Democrat-run cities. In fact, they're not. And they can be put down by just a simple law enforcement unit that just has the ability to go out and do their job. You take the cuffs off them, they do their job. These people are done. They're not a threat in that regard as far as numbers. They are a threat in regard to the fact that if no one is going to police them, if they're going to be allowed to create anarchy, burn things down, loot, steal, assault people, murder people, if they're going to go on to be allowed to do that, that's where the fear comes in with the general public, because they get the sense that there's no one there that's going to stop this. And so far, when you look at these Democrat-run cities, there is no one there to stop that, because they don't want to stop it, because it all plays into this bigger fraud, which ties in, like I said, from everything we've been getting, from the Steele dossier, the Russia hoax, all that down to where we are now with this election. All of it ties together. And because of that, each dot has to work in accordance with one another for them to continue to pull off this charade. So you might think, well, what does the voter fraud have anything to do with the Russia hoax? Trust me when I tell you, it ties in, because there's people that don't want to be known for being tied to that fraud and that treason. And a lot of those same people are involved in the voter fraud. So one hand washes the other, and all of the lies are tied to other lies. And I know that sounds crazy, but as this gets unfolded, and Sydney and her team bring it out on their end, and the Supreme Court gets to delve into this, and the whistleblowers are released, where the American people can actually see it laid out, the evidence, right? Because that's what everybody wants, the evidence. That's why they're so quick to try to call this presidential election. So look, we're going to get into all that today. I also want to talk about, like I said, the vaccine and what's going on with that. So with that said, I want to bring on my guest today, Michael Johns. Tea Party founder, co-founder, and leader of the movement. How you doing, Michael?
Hey, good, John. Good to hear from you.
Welcome, brother. Look, we've got a lot to cover today. I'm
Game
sure.
on, huh?
What's that?
Game on.
Yeah, I'm sure that you
back in the
saw.
old schoolyard.
Say again?
As we used to say back in the old schoolyard, you know?
Right. Game on, brother. Look, I'm sure that you saw the news conference today with Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, right?
Very well done, I thought.
Let me get your take on that real quick.
Reminded, before we get into the substance, of how fortunate we are to live in the same era as Rudy Giuliani, who, in my judgment, is a hugely underappreciated and under-recognized American icon who his whole life, you know, I mean, if all he had done was break up the mafia families of New York City, and that was his only singular accomplishment, he would be iconic. But just at every stage of his life, how he has looked at good versus evil, freedom versus totalitarianism, justice versus injustice, and been on the right side of every one of those issues in defining moments of our lifetime. What an incredible American. However this plays out, I mean, I hope he caps his career saving representative democracy. What an achievement that would be. But as we'll talk about, we're up against it, man. No doubt about it.
Yeah. Look, I don't look. And here's the thing. And I was talking about this on my opening. I don't know if you caught all of my opening, but the truth is, this election is tied into so many other things along the, let's call it the corruption chart.
Yeah.
Okay. Along the way of this corruption chart, you had the attempted coup, like I said in the opening, where, you know, how did we get here? Okay. We got here through an attempted coup of the president of the United States, even before he became president, you know, as he was running his campaign to become president. And through the Russia hoax, through the Ukraine call, now through the Biden revelation, you know, the China and the Ukraine dirty money, the Clinton dirty money, all of this.
Miguel said to me the other day, so are you alleging that this is a coup against the president of the United States? I'm saying, of course, I'm not alleging that. It's just a continuation of the same process. It's been ongoing. Forget January 2017. This has been ongoing back to 2016.
Yes.
So it's just the latest in this entire machination of largely illegal, largely secretive, largely hugely threatening undertakings designed. You know, we might say they're anti-Trump, but ultimately, let's be clear. This is a much bigger issue now than even one singular man, or even a bigger issue than who's president of the United States for the next 4 years. We now face a crisis, the likes of which I have talked about my entire life in a rhetorical way, of something that we needed to avoid but recognized was always possible. That is now sadly at the doorstep. And I don't want to spend the whole time being down about all this, because we've got to talk about what we're going to do about it, and a lot's happening. But let me just start by saying, which no one is saying, that stop pointing the finger at the other side for the magnitude of what they've accomplished unethically and illegally, and start asking why the people on our side, charged with key leadership functions in ensuring these things do not happen, have failed us.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're going to talk, I assume, about a little bit about Dominion systems. How does Dominion systems get implemented in 30 of our 50 states, in 2,000 jurisdictions, when its singular brand identity and its actual subcomponent parts were marketed on the basis not of guaranteeing or providing a technical mechanism for free and fair elections, but for providing a mechanism for rigging elections? And Smartmatic, which is a big part of this, formulated by 3 Venezuelans close to Hugo Chavez, formulated these.
And Maduro.
Well, after Chavez passes away, they continue their alliance with the socialist, totalitarian, human rights violating regime of Venezuela. So I think what I did catch of what you say, I mean, yeah, recognize this is not now a struggle between two different kind of policy visions. This is a struggle now between good and evil, between freedom and totalitarianism, between popular mandate and democracy and representative government, and those of an elite who seek to trample it.
Let me just say this, Michael. I don't know how much of my opening you caught. Let me just say this, okay? Because before I even got on the show today, I was on the phone for several hours with a whistleblower. And I've been dealing with this whistleblower, getting the facts, putting the story together, getting all the information, and working with several other high-profile people to get all the facts together. But I've got to tell you, it's so explosive that there's no bigger story that I can ever remember in American history than what I've stumbled upon. And it's not just the election, it's all this other stuff. It's the Iran money, it's the Russia hoax. It all ties together in a big ball, and the American people are not going to believe it as it all unfolds. With my friend Sidney and Rudy's case, with that part of it legally up to the Supreme Court, to what these whistleblowers are going to roll out in front of the American people, it is stunning. And I can tell you, as a student of World War history, which I love, World War II specifically, I can tell you that as big as that news was, this news and this story is that big. It's literally not only nation changing, but world changing in its breadth. And so I want to be real clear with my audience and with the American people. We are going to unfold this piece by piece, and we're going to do it. And there's not going to be any concession, because President Trump won this election, hands down.
The way we roll out what we do and what we have been doing, all right, because there's like things I've been aware of for weeks, some of which I have not addressed publicly because of the legal sensitivity and how central they are to all of this. But now some things are getting out, and the course and the mission and the reality needs to set in. So it's very appropriate for you, I think, to instruct and guide your vast viewing audience that this, is a major historical moment in this country. By the way, leadership starts with recognizing that. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but I think I kind of immediately saw that. And now, like with each passing day, you're starting to see individuals who are recognizing that. And, honestly, if anyone with any sensible foresight should have been, and we were concerned, I know you and I even have spoken about it, predominantly as it related to more the mail-in ballot fraud, not this broad technical system fraud, which is the most concerning to me of all because of the broad nature of it.
And the control, like you saw the one guy from Venezuela that was brought into the Michigan, Wayne County, specifically to run the controls of the system. That the Sidney brought that up today in the news conference. And look, if that doesn't
pause right there, though, don't we? So like, my view is obviously how this is positioned, explained to the American people, and in 35 years of my involvement in some of the most sensitive, strategic, and important moments in public policy and politics, at least, I think most people would say that, Michael Johns is a conservative. Michael Johns was a day one Trump supporter, but that I have never misrepresented any fact for political purposes, nor have I ever exaggerated any threat, nor have I sought to mislead the American people. I'd like to
let,
think that my
let me say something, Michael.
Above everything else.
Let me just say one quick thing. The media has sold the lie that if you're a Trump supporter, you're uncredible. Okay? That notion, that lie is now forever dispersed. I don't want to hear anybody from the left.
That's where I was going. That's where I was going with this.
Yeah, and I just want to say that because everything that you have to say, everything that these whistleblowers have to say, everything that Sydney and Rudy and the team have to say, Doug DeGeneva, look, Victoria Tessing, all of them are credible.
You just rattled off 4 really unbelievably important and very, in my judgment, reliable patriots of this country. And trust me, because you have to. I'm not going to sit here and put on a trial about it, but they're not in the interest, and I'm not. And their interest, my interest, would never be to mislead people for the political expediency. It's always been to lay it out. And we very easily could be having a conversation right now where I would be telling you that sadly, our message did not get through. We faced an unusual election cycle with the pandemic and the street riots. And yes, maybe there were unethical steps taken, but it's time to concede this election, wish Joe Biden well, and recognize him as the president of the United States.
That's right.
My message right now is the exact opposite. There is no way, if you are a patriotic American confronting the realities of the information that is now widely available to you, not provided to you by mainstream media, as you correctly report, but indisputably there, not partisan people, not even political people, but people who have signed affidavits under penalty under criminal penalty of perjury and other violations.
It's not about Trump. It's like you said, this is not about us defending Donald Trump.
Yeah,
this is about.
Let me put it in this perspective. I have been active in every electoral cycle of this country since about 1982. Okay, I have been associated with congressional candidates, Senate candidates, and presidential candidates, and an incumbent president. And I have been on the winning side and the losing side, and governors, okay, of these races. I have never once, because I started to think about this yesterday, never once have I alleged in a loss that an election was stolen or rigged.
Me either.
And so
even though
that's not the way that's not the way I roll. That's not
the way I roll either. Like, I'll give you an example. Today, or earlier today, I had a phone call with a woman who ran for Congress, and she was cheated in 2018 in one county, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court of that state, the case, and people were paid off. Okay, there was fraud, and people have gone to prison. This is felony fraud, election fraud. Okay, and yet they swept it under the rug. So you and I know, and the American people that have a brain understand that election fraud has been going on, and it's been getting gradually worse. What we didn't realize, because even though that corruption has gone on, this election is a whole nother matter. That's like comparing a pineapple to an orange.
I couldn't word it more because I was just going to say, look, I had the good fortune, the luck, whatever, fortuitous goodwill of getting to know former President Nixon a little bit. And as you know, he was convinced, and probably accurately convinced, that the 1960 election against John F. Kennedy was robbed from him based on Daley's manipulations of votes in Chicago and in Illinois generally. That he was that close to the presidency. And if you know anything about Nixon or his thinking at that moment, you also would know that he was convinced the election had been stolen from him, and he conceded to John F. Kennedy out of an act of patriotism and avoiding a disruptive situation globally and in the United States and all the ramifications. I mean, because I've worked with organizations where I've been going, an organization, a DC-based organization, part of a large coalition of groups that have gone around the world instructing countries and public officials, elected officials, and civil society on how to put together a democracy. And I have been engaged in witnessing free and fair elections. 1989, I was in Namibia for the first election ever held in that Southwest African country that had no experience. And all that meant, like, candidates going out saying, hey, if you're against us, put a check in this mark. If you're for us, put, an X, like there were all kinds of crazy things going on. And it was an imperfect election, but we've kind of ignored the home front, haven't we? I mean, because I want to start with this recognition that the conservative movement, the Republican Party, and the institutions that have raised a lot of money from a lot of people to keep us out of precisely this sort of situation have failed us.
Yeah. Let me just say one thing.
But if we don't start by sort of that broad recognition, we're in continual denial, as we have been for at least a decade, about the reality of the situation we now confront.
Yeah, and not only that, but even Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren brought up. They brought up the information about Dominion 2 years ago. Okay, so
it's deeper than that. Look, the state of Texas.
I know.
Just to sort of walk through it quickly, the state of Texas went through 3 consecutive applications from Dominion. They issued reports. You can research them. You can read about them because they were so concerned about this system.
Yes,
that they felt obligated to warn, not just to deny their application, but to publicly warn anyone with any involvement or interest in free and fair elections that this system was about as badly put together technically as could be done, and was
basically
susceptible to foreign or domestic manipulation.
They basically warned the American public that these machines through Dominion were fraudulent. Period.
It goes on from there. Louisiana went through their own assessment. These are not political assessments. I want to be clear about these. These were technical experts in system security who had no stake, really, aside from providing their objective assessment of how this thing functions.
This had zero to do with politics. It was completely technically tested. That's
the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, so we know that this is not whether you're Republican or Democrat. It has zero to do with that. It has to do with the ability to manipulate these machines, and certain people having the ability, and not only having the ability, but having the plan put together amongst a group of people to decide to execute election fraud at the very highest level. Okay? And look, when I tell you that, because there's information that these whistleblowers have that just pertains to the election right now, but I'm telling you that there are whistleblowers out there right now that, and one of them I'm dealing with, that has the story that's going to blow the lid on the whole thing, because it all ties together. And the desperation of the Democratic Party, they are in a desperate mode to get into that White House, because they know that all these investigations that are going on for these various treasonous crimes, whether it's the voter fraud or the Bidens over in China, the Ukraine story, the Russia hoax, all that, the Iran money, okay, all of that is tied together.
Nothing new there. I mean, I think we confront the reality ultimately. I did.
Well, the American people need to know. The American people need to know that all of this is tied together. Okay, we knew about the individual things, but what we didn't know is that all of it is part of the same fraudulent treason. Treason. This is treason, people. Okay? And when I'm telling you, It's all coming out. There's
Well,
no stopping it.
here's, so obviously we talked about the fact that the Russia investigation, which this is a very difficult message to communicate, but the Russia investigation, one of its predominant goals was, which we now know, that they fully knew upfront that there was no content to it. Brennan, right? I mean, he alerted them that this was a Hillary Clinton political maneuver. Well, what was the political maneuver? The political maneuver was to distract the American people and the Department of Justice from Hillary Clinton and Obamagate crimes that they did. That they were concerned that someone with the spine of Donald Trump would have the guts to actually pursue.
That's
which
right.
is one of the reasons 63 million Americans went out and voted for this guy was look, let's be honest, he has not succeeded in that mission.
That's right, and not only him.
And now and by the way, these are snowballing. These are snowballing, momentous forces, as you I think alluded to. That this isn't like, whoops, we lost that one. When you lose it, the momentum continues to build and build and build. And right now, that has to be the message. It's like don't look at this as anything that, as Trump, or that Trump's trying to save himself, or
no,
or this isn't even a question of who you want as
this isn't even about Trump.
Even if this were being perpetuated on our side, that we'd be unearthing it.
Look,
the issue is, let me just finish this one thought, John, is that if you allow Joe Biden to be inaugurated on January 20th, with treason. The magnitude of evidence that we have that this election,
he is not the president,
fraudulently manipulated for his benefit, maybe not even by him, maybe by others. So let me be clear. It's not even like, hey, this was Joe Biden's idea.
It's Obama.
He's probably not capable. Honestly, I don't know if he's capable of concocting something of this.
No, he's not.
And much less implementing it.
He's not.
Which is one of the other reasons, that many of us oppose him. So there's a lot of co-conspirators likely involved here. There should be urgently, however, let me just see, this is the problem, right? You mentioned you're talking to a whistleblower. Obviously, I'm a go-to person. People call me on this stuff all the time. And you got to be careful with whistleblowers, because, the other side calls representing the whistleblowers too sometimes. So you got to always be careful about these stories. But the reason they call people like you and I at this juncture in our history is because, sadly, our federal law enforcement has lost complete credibility with the American people. They've taken a side.
They're on the take.
And so it's worse than that, though. Not only did they take a side, but sadly, even with Trump as president, they've gotten away with taking a side. And now they feel empowered. And why wouldn't they? They feel we perpetuated this on the American people. Everybody knew about it. And everybody who could do anything knew about it. And even Trump didn't do anything about it. So they feel properly inoculated from this. And the point is, if you allow the next in the series of these violations of our Constitution and of representative democracy to be perpetuated, this is not about the fact that we might have a bad next 4 years, or that the marginal tax rate might be higher. This is about the very fact that we have conceded the issue of everything that started in 1775 with the first bullet that was shot, and perpetuated on, and has been at the core of every brave generation of Americans since the Revolutionary War, that established a representative democracy, put it into place, consciously defended it again, because there's nothing new here. What's the one common denominator throughout American history? This freedom has been so intimidating to powerful forces and to foreign governments that they have sought to remove it. And still seek to remove it, right? I mean, that was the whole Cold War. That clearly was World War II. That's a common theme. And it was the issue of our domestic enemies. So having erred, frankly, the last 4 years in being able to enforce many of the restoration of these fundamental core components of a government that is neutral and based on the rule of law and doesn't take sides, we're now confronting a crisis, incredibly to many, even greater than that we just went through. The unbelievably absurd notion, which we don't pause enough to even just say, that the president of the United States was collaborating with a hostile foreign power for the purpose. No, the whole premise is like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we let them get away with it. The people who launched it, perpetuated it, who went out there and stood before cameras and told us indisputably that they had witnessed and had reviewed evidence that the president had been engaged in that very activity, have never been held accountable for it.
Nope.
The
Nope,
DOJ and FBI, which we would love, which I will want to, are filled with, as we need to continue to say, I'm sure many good people, continue to be organizationally tilted.
Yeah. The reason that they haven't.
So how ridiculous today in this Giuliani press conference to have a question presented about what the FBI and DOJ are doing about what should be priority one, all fire alarms going off, right? So look, somebody tried to rig an American election. I mean, can you think of anything that would be more central to the very mission of our Department of Justice and the FBI than that?
Yeah.
I mean, like that would be like, forget everything else you're working on. And like, we need all hands on deck.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the reason
to sort of have to look under the podium and, sort of amusingly say, where are you? It's not really that funny.
Let me just say this. The reason for the desperation that if you have any sense, you can sense and smell, and I've been smelling it just like you have for a long time. But the reason for the desperation is because these crimes over here, whether it's the Russia hoax or, the Ukraine deal with the dirty money or the China deal, all of that, the Obama money to Iran, any of the crimes committed by members of even Congress, the reason why they're desperate, they've got to get Trump out, because that's why this election, they were going to go all the ball. This is for the whole ball of wax, people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the whole show. If they get what they want here, it's over. It's over, because that will mean that they will control all the levers of corruption, and you won't be able to even investigate anymore. That's where we are. This is the last hurrah for America. So if you believe in America and you believe in what this country was founded on, our Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, our founding, what it means, okay? If you believe in any of that, this is it. So I'm telling you right now, these people are so corrupt. Look, I'll give you an example of what I mean by how the dots are connected.
But we have to.
Hold on, Michael.
I mean,
I've got to give you this example. This is very important. Look at General Michael Flynn. Okay, you notice how his case has still not been resolved by Sullivan.
He went to DOJ saying we don't see any. We're no longer the plaintiff in this case, basically.
Yeah, but they're dragging it out because they have to get past this election.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point. That's what I mean by how all this ties together. Why does that matter? Because General Michael Flynn has all the information to expose them, and they can't have his case resolved before this election's resolved.
Look, I know Michael Flynn a little bit. I can't say definitively why he doesn't just go ahead. If he's got something of importance to say,
yes, he does.
Go ahead and say it. By the way, the worst case scenario for Michael Flynn is not that bad of a case, and I'm quite sure this president is ultimately going to pardon him, whatever comes out of this anyway. So if he's got something to say, because look, nobody's beyond critique at this point. All of this stuff happened on our watch. Okay, so if he's aware of some systematic issue, as clearly was suggested with what. Look, you think about the Oval Office meeting between Obama and Trump after Trump's victory. Trump walks in there, and I can remember immediately saying, based on the look on Trump's face, that he had heard something horrifying.
Why do you think they tried to get Flynn out? Why do you think they were so desperate?
John, this is where I'm going. I'm saying, so if you're Obama and you got 45 minutes scheduled with the next president, you probably got a lot of, you got to really kind of prioritize what you're going to communicate. What was like he had two themes that were widely known to have been discussed in that meeting. Number one was, you absolutely cannot put Michael Flynn in your government, period, right? Without a whole lot of explanation. Meaning, so it was to me suggestive of the fact that he has a lot of insight as to things, and he was obviously a high-level official in the Obama administration, including in intel capacities. So he had a recognition of wrongdoings that may not be broadly known yet to the American people. But my point on this is, I don't like, so he presents himself as a patriot. I think a lot of Americans kind of recognize him to be that.
Yes.
But okay, but I haven't heard anything from him. I'm not hearing any words out of him. If he has things that are relevant to the accountability of our government and government officials, then get out there and say it, or stop implying it, because it is because he too is not beyond criticism at this moment.
Okay,
There's a lot of diversion.
I've got
a lot of money put into that guy's.
I've got to defend General Flynn in this situation, because here's the deal. The bottom line is, he is involved with a current court case, and there are legal ramifications in that case where I'm sorry.
Going to jail.
Okay, well that's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is that case has not been resolved by Sullivan. Sullivan is still dangling it there. Delay. They're trying to get beyond the election, because if Flynn would not have been taken out, he was going to break all this stuff wide open. Okay? That's where we are. That is where we are.
I will concede that what you're saying is a broadly, you're not alone in your viewpoint there. I think a lot of people would agree with you, and maybe not agree with me, for well I know, maybe not agree with me. But I want to say that the impediment, so we're talking about this issue of country first and foremost, and he has a complicated, but to be honest, fairly minor issue of criminality that he confronts, that almost certainly, regardless of the outcome, he's going to be pardoned. There's nothing that I see impeding him if he has information.
We want exoneration.
Okay, well, so what are you really saying? That he is putting his self-interest of having what I'm
saying is, I don't know that if he's pardoned, that he can rejoin the administration. I think that if he's exonerated, he can, right?
No, well, firstly, there's only two issues here. There's the discretion that the President of the United States has to appoint officials. There's obviously, you would not likely put him in a position that required confirmation, because he probably wouldn't obtain it. And then there's the security clearance that's necessary for whatever functions you're providing. Which is another issue, is the people assessing and offering security clearances now.
What if he's exonerated?
What?
What if he's exonerated? Not pardoned. You
mean in a second Trump term?
I'm saying if Sullivan does what the DOJ asked him to do, which is there is no case, it's time to dismiss the case, he's exonerated. He could be brought back into the administration today.
Hold on, pause. He could be federally pardoned today and brought into the administration if he were that valuable.
Are you sure about that?
What? Absolutely. Sure about Okay, look, the only thing that a president can pardon any federal criminal allegation or any federal conviction.
I know that.
Not only just pardon it, can
I got it. What I'm asking you is, okay, you don't understand.
What you can't do is do that on a state level.
What I'm asking you is, legally, is a pardon the same as an exoneration? I don't believe it is.
No, let me answer your question. There's various components of a pardon. So if you look, even in our last 10 or 20 years, you can void the criminal penalty without voiding the actual conviction, or you can void all of it. That's a president's discretion, but it has to be a federal crime. Now, in the case of Michael Flynn, there's nothing except politics and a sense of justice that precludes the president of the United States from pardoning Michael Flynn right now and bringing him into the administration in whatever capacity he wants to do. And I have about 0% sense that there's any interest in doing that. So what the broader point, not because I think we're spending too much on this, the broader point is if Michael Flynn has something to say, there's nothing legally impeding him from saying it.
Okay. Look,
and if I'm mistaken in that, tell me what it is. There's no constraint. But unlike some of the other defendants in these various Trump-related cases, there's no he has no binding obligation to remain silent about things by the court.
Yeah, I don't think you understand what I'm trying to say.
No, I understand the issue of the clock running out and all that, and how left.
What I'm trying to tell you is the Democrats are the ones trying to run out the clock. Okay, number one. Number two, I think General Flynn thought that this case would be over with by now. Okay, it's been drug out purposely by Sullivan, and that ties directly into the election. They have to get Trump out. That's the bottom line here. That is their end game. Okay, and I'm telling you that if General Flynn is exonerated, meaning the case is dismissed, I believe he would be back in the White House pretty quickly. I really believe that. Okay, or maybe if not the White House, maybe over at the FBI. I don't know where. But
don't lose sight of the moment and the big picture. This is my biggest warning, actually, and one of the reasons I was anxious to speak with you today is because a lot of Americans today, tomorrow, the next day are going to ponder what's really important at this moment. And, in my judgment, you have all these subplots that are intriguing, interesting, and a subject of debate, but we don't have any higher cause than making sure that the outcome of the 2020 presidential election is wholly accurate, and that whoever is the next president of the United States was, in fact, the person who secured 270 electoral or more votes on election day. Your screen appears to have frozen.
Sorry, completely blocked out. I don't know what happened, everybody. Please forgive me. Totally has nothing to do with me. Hopefully we'll get Michael back here. We had, I don't know, maybe like a 60-second just blackout. I don't even know what happened. I hope we didn't lose anybody. And hopefully Michael will be back with us. But look, the bottom line here is that, like with General Flynn, I don't know, and I have to look. I'm not a lawyer. I have to look it up or call Sydney or somebody, Lynn Wood, find out if a pardon is the same as an exoneration legally for someone entering the administration for president of the United States. I don't know if a pardon, does that give the American also the American people, will they have faith in that for the people that don't like President Trump? I think all around it's smarter and better just to have the exoneration, because that way there's nothing that should be pending regarding even the thoughts of people on General Flynn's case or as to his character, especially with all that we know and what they did and, threatening his son. And just when you tie, again, all of this together, and you find out why the Democrats are so desperate to get this election moved on, it all ties back to, like I said, the Russia hoax, the attempted coup on the president, what the Bidens did in Ukraine and China, the Iran money, the Clinton dirty money, all of it ties into this current election right now, in their desperation that you're seeing, and them wanting to try to hide all of this. You got to understand, people, these Democrats, and there are even some dirty Republicans here too, they have to bury and hide all of this for fear that they're going to get exposed in these other matters that don't even have anything to do with the election. So they can't have Trump in the White House. They can't have General Flynn in intelligence and running intelligence agency, or the FBI or someone like that. They can't have a Sidney Powell. And the reason that they can't is because they know that the gig is up. They know that all these different investigations, we're finding their guilt, their criminality, their treason. And they've got to try to stop that talk amongst the American people, the media. They just can't have it, because if it goes on, they're going to prison. That's what this is about. That is how high this treason goes amongst, again, members of Congress. This is how disturbing it is. The level of corruption. You think that these Dominion voting machines are bad, and the corruption with that, as bad as that is, I can list you in many other areas that I've already gone over today that lead into this and connect the dots to this election and why the desperation is so high. The Democrats, they cannot have President Trump in the White House for 4 more years. They cannot, and that's why they're so desperate. With the Senate, they're going to try to do anything to take over this government, because they are this close to complete domination and takeover of the United States of America. That is how deep this treason goes, and it's tied into all that stuff. So I want you guys to understand how deep this goes, the breadth of this. Make sure that you're tuning in to Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, their press conferences, so that you're getting the story, the right story from the right people. It's all going to come out anyway. And the lamestream fake news media, they're not going to be able to hide it. So they can try all they will. It's not going to work. The gig is up. We've all figured them out. At least 73 million people have figured it out. So there's no way that they're going to be able to stop the flow of information. It's just not going to happen. So they can try as they might. By the way, before we go today, I wanted to hit on this real quick, and I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this. And we're going to have Dr. Bartlett on the show soon to discuss this. And I wanted to have him on a couple weeks ago, but I was on the move out of town, as you guys know. So Pfizer, we've got several other through Warp Speed, several other companies that are putting together these vaccines, now up to 95% effective. And I got into a little bit of it last week about the CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla, Bourla, Albert Bourla, of Pfizer, and how he had the prearranged large block of shares. I think it was 62% of his stock that was prearranged in a sale. So again, I talked about how Biden and his campaign were notified a day before Trump and the White House was about this vaccine announcement that came out. So you can bet your bottom dollar, by the way, folks, that this was all prearranged. They knew about this before the election. Pfizer held it off because they didn't want the American people to know that President Trump and Warp Speed got a win, a big win for you, the American people. So just wanted to get into that. $2 billion U.S. taxpayer dollars paid for that, and these other companies to come up with the vaccine. So it's your money at work. It's my money at work. And these people are committing fraud 6 ways from Sunday. Everything that they touch now is it's all criminal. And I mean, I know that's hard to believe. It's almost unfathomable, but I'm telling you, these people are that corrupt where all of it is dust. All of it is lies. Every single bit of it, it is corrupt to the core. And I hate to be so bleak about it, folks, but I'm going to tell you, you have got to stand up and fight, and you better fight like you never have before, because if you don't, you are finished. I'm finished. This country's finished, and probably this world, because that is how deep this corruption goes. I want to thank my guest, we never got Michael Johns back, but we'll have him back soon. And thank you, America. Like I said, I'm working on, actually, here is Michael. Let me bring Michael back on. Michael, I was just getting ready to sign off here, but real quick, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, sorry about that. Your screen froze and disconnected.
Mine too.
Yeah, my final thought is this, that we need to take very seriously and credibly the allegations of vast voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election. There's a reason likely that we were told for almost 6 months that there would absolutely be no corruption. That was, weird almost that you would have major media institutions, social media, et cetera, going out with that message. They knew. Don't overstate. Don't be engaged. Be engaged with me directly. Many activities that are going to launch now in support of our system of government and making sure we have a proper outcome of this. Do not overstate or don't bring conjecture. Except that you don't have all of the facts at your disposal yet. That's because this is the way you lose these debates and these major issues, is by overstepping. So we simply say, look, we got affidavits in hand. We've already had courts that have ruled in Trump's favor. The question of whether there was any fraud is now settled. There was electoral fraud. The question now is, can we get the American people behind uncovering every fact related to that fraud, most concerning of which appears to be the electoral system fraud itself, and those who are responsible. If there's a recognition of criminal wrongdoing, there should be indictments and arrests immediately.
Yes.
Bring some clarity to this. I think we're over talking and underacting. Well,
we're still collecting information, right? So
I just gave you I think, unless you feel differently about it, I think I just gave you the most fundamental facts that concerns about a fraudulent election had now been validated. If your position is there was no fraud in this election, then you're just misleading people. The question is the magnitude of the fraud, who was responsible for it, and whether, as I suspect, it actually impacted the electoral outcome of it. And that's it. The issues are not broader than that. This doesn't relate to the next 40 years. Doesn't relate to who you think would be a better president, or if you like or dislike Trump. It is simply the issue of that we have good American citizens who have come forward and provided allegations in courts that have validated some of those.
Doing the right thing.
So we do not have a president-elect. You call, I don't care. You call him whatever. You call Joe Biden whatever you want to call him. But we don't have a president-elect at any point until we have electors who decide that issue. And we have multiple steps between here and there. We got the certification of state results. We have all of these vast federal cases. And, my guidance to the Trump legal team is protect the evidence, because they're going to do. They're already. I almost guarantee that if this is as advertised, and some group of people engaged in a criminal conspiracy to rig an American election, presidential election, they have no constraints on their behavior.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And look, you hit the nail on the head. This is about the American people doing the right thing, doing the legal thing, doing the constitutional thing, and protecting our republic. America, I want to thank my guest, Michael Johns, for joining us today. And we'll have him back soon. Sorry for the technical problems. Who knows why?
Who knows?
Every now and then it happens, and we just try to keep moving.
Weird.
It happens. But God bless you, America. We're going to keep on this. Like I said, we're still collecting data. We're still getting information from whistleblowers. We're putting all the pieces together, and we're going to bring it to you every day, all day. And we're going to keep bringing it to you until we can lay out all the facts. God bless you, America. Thanks for joining us tonight on Indivisible.